As Zuena opened her car's hood, the man's demeanor changed. His friendly smile twisted into a sinister grin. He lunged at her, wrapping the jumper cables around her neck. Gasping for air, Zuena used all her strength to pull away, kicking him hard in the shin. Zuena hummed along to her favorite Christmas songs as she drove through the winding countryside road. She was eager to reach her village and celebrate the holiday with her family. The road stretched out ahead, bathed in the dim glow of her headlights, but an unexpected detour sign loomed before her. Without thinking much, she took the turn. Minutes turned into an hour, and the scenery grew darker and more unfamiliar. Tall trees loomed over the narrow road, their gnarled branches resembling skeletal hands. Anxiety crept in as she realized no other cars were on this path. Zuena tightened her grip on the steering wheel, her heart pounding as the road grew increasingly eerie. The further she drove, the more the sense of isolation intensified. Her GPS stopped functioning, leaving her to rely on her instincts. Every curve of the road seemed to lead her deeper into the unknown. The haunting hoots of owls and rustling of unseen creatures amplified the sinister atmosphere. She debated turning around, but feared getting more lost. Zuena's anticipation of a joyous reunion with her family began to waver, replaced by a growing dread that she might not make it at all. Up ahead, the silhouette of a man waving frantically came into view. His car, a beaten-up sedan, sat lifeless on the roadside. Zuena slowed her car cautiously. The man, middle-aged with a rugged appearance, held jumper cables. "Thank God you stopped," he said, his smile almost disarming. "I just need a quick jump start." Relieved, Zuena agreed, but the unease in her chest lingered. The man introduced himself as Richard and made small talk while they prepared to connect the cables. Despite his polite tone, Zuena noticed his eyes lingering on her a little too long. Her instincts screamed at her to leave, but she silenced them, not wanting to seem paranoid. She stepped out of her car, feeling the chilly night air prick her skin. Richard's demeanor shifted slightly, his smile becoming strained. Zuena brushed off her apprehension, unaware of the nightmare about to unfold. As Zuena opened her car's hood, the man's demeanor changed. His friendly smile twisted into a sinister grin. He lunged at her, wrapping the jumper cables around her neck. Gasping for air, Zuena used all her strength to pull away, kicking him hard in the shin. She broke free and ran into the dense bush, the man's footsteps pounding behind her. The forest was a maze of darkness and shadows, but Zuena pushed forward, her heart racing. She stumbled over roots and clawed through branches, each step fueled by desperation. Behind her, Richard's taunts echoed through the trees, his voice dripping with malice. Zuena's throat burned, and tears streamed down her face as she fought to put distance between herself and her attacker. She clung to the hope that she might find safety if she kept moving. After hours of hiding and running, Zuena returned to the road. Her car was still there, but her relief was short-lived. Her tires were slashed. She screamed in frustration as the shadowy figure of her attacker emerged from the darkness. His aggression fueled her survival instincts, and she ran back into the wilderness. Zuena's mind raced as she plotted her next move. Her phone was useless with no signal, and the thought of waiting for help seemed futile. She crouched low, watching as Richard inspected her car. The moonlight illuminated his twisted smirk, a chilling reminder of his persistence. Zuena gritted her teeth, determined not to let fear consume her. She needed a plan, and fast. Zuena's fear transformed into determination. Her years of karate training surfaced as she prepared herself. The attacker, who called himself Richard, emerged from the shadows again, taunting her. Using precise kicks and punches, she fought back fiercely. In the struggle, Richard tripped over a rock, hitting his head hard. He collapsed, motionless. Panting, Zuena took a moment to collect herself. The sight of Richard's lifeless body brought no relief, only a profound sense of dread. She checked his pulse, her hands trembling, and confirmed he was dead. Zuena's breaths came in shallow gasps as she stumbled back to the road. She couldn't shake the fear that someone else might appear, or that Richard might somehow get up again. Adrenaline surged through her veins, propelling her to keep moving. With dawn breaking, Zuena began her trek back to the main road. Exhausted and hungry, she trudged on. The haunting memories of the night kept her on edge, but the thought of safety pushed her forward. Finally, the distant hum of a vehicle gave her hope. Her feet ached, and every muscle in her body screamed for rest, but Zuena refused to stop. The sun's rays pierced through the trees, offering a semblance of comfort. She replayed the events of the night in her mind, each moment more surreal than the last. When she finally heard the faint sound of an engine, she felt a glimmer of hope. Waving her arms frantically, she prayed the driver would stop. An old man in a rusty pickup truck pulled over. "Need a ride, miss?" he asked kindly. Zuena hesitated but nodded, her hunger and exhaustion overpowering her caution. As they drove, he offered her bread and water. Grateful, she ate quickly and dozed off, her guard down. The old man, who introduced himself as Edward, spoke in a soft, reassuring tone. Zuena felt her tension ease slightly, though a nagging voice in the back of her mind warned her to stay alert. As her eyes grew heavy, she rationalized that not everyone could be as dangerous as Richard. Sleep overtook her, and she didn't notice Edward's occasional glances, his expression unreadable. Zuena awoke to find herself tied up in a dimly lit room. The old man, introducing himself as Edward, revealed he was Richard's father. "You killed my son," he growled. "Now you'll pay." Zuena's heart raced as Edward's unhinged anger filled the room. The torment began, but she vowed not to give up. Edward's rage was palpable as he paced the room, his voice rising with each word. Zuena's mind raced, searching for a way to escape. She noticed tools scattered on a nearby table and began subtly working on the ropes binding her hands. Edward's threats grew more menacing, but Zuena focused on her breathing, steadying herself for the moment she'd fight back. Using her agility and resourcefulness, Zuena freed herself from the ropes. She overpowered Edward, knocking him unconscious. She ran out of the house, her breath coming in short gasps. Spotting the pickup truck, she started it and sped away, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and relief. Zuena's hands shook as she gripped the steering wheel, the countryside blurring past her. She didn't dare look back, terrified that Edward might regain consciousness and come after her. The truck's engine roared as she pressed the pedal to the floor, her only goal being to put as much distance as possible between herself and the nightmare she'd endured. As sunlight bathed the countryside, Zuena reached the main road. A police patrol car appeared, and she flagged it down. She recounted her harrowing experience, and the officers reassured her that they'd investigate. Safe at last, Zuena promised herself to trust her instincts and never take the road less traveled again. Her nightmare had ended, and she was ready to reunite with her family, cherishing the safety and love of home. The officers offered Zuena a ride to the nearest town, where she could finally contact her family. As she sat in the back of the patrol car, the weight of the night's events settled on her. Tears streamed down her face, a mix of relief and lingering fear. But in her heart, she knew she had survived against all odds. Christmas would never feel the same, but Zuena vowed to embrace each moment with newfound gratitude.